You want to know how to become irresistible to an avoidant? I'm going to share something with you that most relationship coaches won't tell you, something that cuts straight to the core of what makes an avoidant person unconsciously drawn to someone like a magnet. But before I dive into these psychological triggers, I need to give you a crucial warning that could save your emotional well-being and, potentially, years of your life. While I'm about to reveal the deepest unconscious desires that make avoidants feel an almost magnetic pull toward certain people, there are behaviors that some avoidants exhibit that should immediately disqualify them from your romantic consideration, regardless of how attracted they might be to you. These aren't just attachment issues that can be worked through with patience and understanding. These are fundamental character defects that reveal a person's complete unsuitability for intimate relationships. Understanding this distinction is absolutely critical because there's a difference between genuine avoidant attachment patterns that stem from trauma and fear, which can potentially be healed within the right relationship context when the person demonstrates authentic remorse, accountability, and willingness to change, versus behaviors that stem from pure selfishness, manipulation, and a fundamental lack of empathy, integrity, and respect. The latter category represents character flaws that transcend attachment styles and indicate someone who lacks the basic human qualities necessary for healthy relationships, regardless of any psychological explanations or attachment wounds they might have. Now, let me be crystal clear about what I mean by character defects that should immediately end any romantic consideration. If an avoidant has engaged in any of these behaviors, no amount of attraction or magnetic pull should convince you to pursue them or accept them back into your life. First, if they pursued romantic connections with other people while you were separated or during periods of conflict, this reveals something devastating about their character. This isn't about them processing their feelings or working through attachment issues. This is about them treating your connection as one option among many, shopping for alternatives while keeping you as a backup plan. When someone genuinely values what they have with you, they don't immediately seek replacement connections. They sit with their discomfort, process their emotions, and work through their fears. The avoidant who jumps into dating others during separation is avoiding their emotional reality rather than confronting it, which means they're fundamentally incapable of the growth necessary for relationship success. This behavior demonstrates that they view relationships as easily replaceable commodities rather than meaningful bonds between human beings. They're approaching love from a position of scarcity and fear, rather than recognizing the irreplaceable nature of genuine intimacy. This perspective makes them incapable of the depth and commitment necessary for lasting relationship success. Moreover, their willingness to add insult to injury by publicly pursuing other romantic options during an already difficult time reveals a level of selfishness and lack of consideration for your feelings that disqualifies them from serious relationship consideration. The excuse that they were just exploring options or trying to move on doesn't justify this behavior. Healthy people who end relationships because they're genuinely not ready for commitment don't immediately seek similar commitment with others. Second, if they consistently invalidate your emotional responses to their behavior, calling you too sensitive, dramatic, or unreasonable about the hurt their actions caused, they're revealing their fundamental inability to take responsibility for the impact of their choices on others. This invalidation is a form of emotional abuse that serves multiple functions for the narcissistic avoidant. It allows them to avoid taking full responsibility for their behavior by suggesting the problem lies with your reaction rather than their actions. It maintains their sense of superiority by positioning them as the rational one and you as the emotional one. It prevents them from having to do the difficult work of genuine accountability and change. When someone minimizes your hurt feelings, they're establishing a precedent where your emotional responses will always be subject to their approval and validation. They're setting up a dynamic where you'll constantly question your own reactions and defer to their judgment about what constitutes reasonable emotional responses. This is a form of gaslighting that destroys self-trust and emotional integrity. The person who lacks empathy for the pain their behavior caused will lack empathy for future pain as well. They're showing you exactly how they'll respond to your emotional needs throughout any relationship, with dismissal, minimization, and blame shifting. This pattern doesn't improve with time, it becomes more entrenched as they learn they can avoid accountability through invalidation. Third, if they return without genuine accountability for their past actions, offering only vague apologies and future promises while refusing to directly address their previous behavior, they're attempting to manipulate their way back into your life without doing the work necessary for real change. True accountability requires specific acknowledgement of harmful actions, understanding of their impact, and concrete plans for behavioral change. The person who offers only generic apologies like, "I'm sorry if I hurt you," or "I know I wasn't perfect," is revealing their unwillingness to fully confront the reality of their behavior. These non-apologies allow them to maintain plausible deniability about the severity of their actions while appearing to take responsibility. They want the benefits of accountability without the discomfort of actually being accountable. Genuine accountability includes explaining what internal work they've done to address the underlying issues that drove their harmful behavior. Without this internal work, their return is just an empty gesture motivated by convenience rather than growth. They're essentially asking you to pretend the harmful behavior never happened, wanting to start fresh without dealing with the consequences of their choices. This creates a dynamic where they learn they can escape accountability through time and charm, setting a dangerous precedent for future behavior. Fourth, if they consistently position themselves as the victim in every conflict or difficult situation, they lack the emotional maturity necessary for healthy relationships. This victim mentality prevents them from taking genuine responsibility for their role in problems and creates a dynamic where they're never accountable for relationship difficulties. The victim-playing avoidant has perfected the art of flipping every conversation about their behavior into a discussion about how they've been wronged. When confronted about their emotional unavailability, they focus on how much pressure they felt. When questioned about their inconsistency, they emphasize how misunderstood they are. This deflection prevents any real accountability or growth. This victim mentality serves as a comprehensive defense system that protects them from ever having to examine their own contributions to relationship problems. By positioning themselves as the injured party, they avoid the discomfort of genuine self-reflection and change while maintaining their sense of moral superiority and ensuring all relationship problems become someone else's fault. They also use this strategy to manipulate their partner's empathy and compassion, weaponizing their supposed victimhood to avoid consequences for their behavior. This emotional manipulation creates trauma bonds rather than healthy attachment. Fifth, and most seriously, if they have ever humiliated you publicly or privately, they should never be welcomed back into your life under any circumstances. Humiliation represents a level of cruelty and disrespect that transcends attachment issues and reveals fundamental character defects that make healthy relationships impossible. The person who deliberately attacks your dignity and self-worth has crossed a line that should never be forgiven or forgotten. Humiliation differs from regular conflict or even harsh words spoken in anger. It involves deliberate attempts to diminish your worth, embarrass you in front of others, or attack your deepest insecurities with the specific intent to cause maximum psychological damage. This behavior reveals someone who not only lacks empathy, but actively enjoys causing pain to people who trust them. The capacity for humiliation reveals sadistic tendencies that don't improve with time or therapy. Public humiliation shows particular callousness because it involves using others as witnesses to your degradation. Private humiliation, such as attacking your physical appearance, sexual performance, intelligence, or other intimate vulnerabilities, shows that they weaponize the trust and intimacy you've shared against you. They use your openness and vulnerability as ammunition for psychological warfare, which makes any future intimacy unsafe and inadvisable. These 5 behaviors represent absolute deal breakers that transcend attachment styles and indicate character defects that make healthy relationships impossible. While genuine avoidant attachment patterns can be worked with and healed, these behaviors reveal selfishness, manipulation, cruelty, and lack of empathy that will destroy any relationship regardless of attachment healing. The person who exhibits any of these behaviors doesn't deserve a second chance because they've demonstrated their fundamental unsuitability for intimate relationships. Now, with that crucial warning out of the way, let me share what makes certain people absolutely irresistible to avoidance, understanding that this knowledge should only be applied with someone who has demonstrated they possess the basic character qualities necessary for healthy relationships. The first unconscious desire that makes avoidance feel an almost magnetic pull is encountering someone who embodies effortless emotional independence. This isn't about playing hard to get or using manipulation tactics. This is about genuine self-sufficiency that radiates from your core. Avoidants are unconsciously drawn to people who don't need them to complete themselves, who have rich, fulfilling lives independent of romantic relationships, and who bring wholeness rather than emptiness to the connection. This emotional independence triggers something deep in their psyche because it represents the kind of person they unconsciously wish they could be themselves. The avoidant personality is often built, but here's where it gets interesting. This isn't about being cold or distant. It's about being warm and engaging when you're together, while maintaining your own center of gravity. You're genuinely interested in them and enjoy their company, but you're not desperate for their attention or validation. You have your own life, your own dreams, your own emotional world that exists whether they're in it or not. This creates a dynamic where they can get close to you without feeling trapped, where they can experience intimacy without the fear of losing themselves. This emotional independence also triggers their unconscious desire for someone who won't try to fix them or change them. Avoidants have often experienced relationships where partners try to push them toward greater emotional expression or intimacy, which activates their defense mechanisms. But when you're emotionally independent, you're not trying to extract anything from them. You're not sitting around waiting for them to open up or become more emotionally available. You're simply being yourself, and this lack of pressure creates space for them to naturally gravitate toward you. The second deep unconscious desire that makes avoidance irresistible is encountering someone who demonstrates consistent emotional regulation and stability. Avoidants are unconsciously terrified of emotional chaos and unpredictability, often because they experience this in their early relationships. They're drawn to people who remain calm and centered even during difficult conversations or conflicts, who don't explode emotionally or become overwhelmed by relationship challenges. This emotional stability isn't about being emotionless or suppressing your feelings. It's about having the emotional intelligence to process your emotions internally before expressing them, to communicate your needs and boundaries clearly without drama, and to handle relationship stress without losing your sense of self. When an avoidant sees that you can navigate emotional situations with grace and maturity, they unconsciously recognize you as someone safe to be vulnerable with. This stability also extends to how you handle their own emotional unavailability or defensive behaviors. Instead of taking their pulling away personally or trying to chase them when they retreat, you maintain your emotional center. You don't become anxious or demanding when they need space. You don't try to force intimacy or emotional connection. This response is deeply attractive to avoidance because it confirms that you're not going to add to their emotional burden or create the kind of relationship dynamic they're trying to avoid. Your emotional stability also demonstrates that you won't punish them for their authentic self-expression. Many avoidants have learned to hide their true thoughts and feelings because they've been met with emotional reactions that felt overwhelming or threatening. When you consistently respond to their authentic communication with calm understanding, even if you don't agree with what they're saying, you create a safe space for them to gradually open up more. The third unconscious desire that creates irresistible attraction in avoidance is encountering someone who respects and honors their need for autonomy without making them feel guilty about it. This goes beyond simply giving them space. It's about genuinely understanding and appreciating their need for independence as a valid and valuable part of who they are, not as something that needs to be fixed or changed. When you can say things like, "I love that you have your own interests and goals that are separate from our relationship," or "I appreciate that you need time to process things on your own," you're speaking directly to their deepest unconscious need to be accepted as they are. You're not trying to merge with them or create a relationship where you're joined at the hip. You're celebrating their individuality and showing that you see their autonomy as a strength rather than a threat to the relationship. This respect for their autonomy also means you don't try to control or manipulate them into giving you more attention, time, or emotional intimacy. You don't use guilt, pressure, or emotional manipulation to get your needs met. Instead, you clearly communicate what you need and want, while giving them the complete freedom to choose how they respond. This approach is incredibly attractive to avoidance because it allows them to choose to give you their attention and affection rather than feeling forced or pressured into it. Your respect for their autonomy also extends to understanding that their way of showing love and care might be different from yours. Maybe they show love through actions rather than words, or through giving you space to pursue your own interests rather than constantly seeking connection. When you can recognize and appreciate these different expressions of care, you demonstrate that you truly understand and accept them, which creates a powerful unconscious bond. The fourth unconscious desire that makes avoidance feel irresistibly drawn to someone is encountering a person who embodies mystery and depth without being manipulative or game-playing. Avoidants are often attracted to people who have rich inner worlds, who are intellectually stimulating, and who continue to reveal new layers of themselves over time. This isn't about being secretive or withholding information, it's about being genuinely complex and interesting, having your own thoughts, opinions, and experiences that don't revolve around the relationship. This mystery and depth satisfy the avoidant's unconscious need for a partner who won't become boring or predictable. They're often drawn to people who challenge them intellectually, who have their own unique perspectives on life, and who continue to grow and evolve as individuals. When you demonstrate that you're not just focused on the relationship but are actively engaged in your own personal growth and development, you become incredibly attractive because you represent the kind of dynamic, evolving partnership they unconsciously crave. This depth also means you don't reveal everything about yourself immediately. You share authentically and vulnerably when appropriate, but you also maintain some sense of personal boundaries and privacy. You don't dump all your emotional baggage on them early in the relationship, and you don't expect them to do the same. This gradual revelation of deeper layers creates a sense of discovery and exploration that keeps the avoidant engaged and interested. Your mystery and depth also extend to having your own opinions, values, and boundaries that you won't compromise for the sake of the relationship. You're not trying to become what you think they want you to be. You're authentically yourself, and this authenticity is incredibly attractive because it means they can trust that what they see is what they get. There's no fear that you're going to suddenly change or reveal yourself to be completely different once they're more invested. The fifth unconscious desire that creates irresistible attraction in avoidance is encountering someone who demonstrates secure attachment behaviors without trying to fix or change them. This means you're comfortable with intimacy and emotional connection, but you're not needy or clingy. You can be vulnerable and emotionally expressive without being overwhelming. You can ask for what you need without being demanding or manipulative. This secure attachment style is incredibly attractive to avoidants because it represents everything they unconsciously wish they could be in relationships. You're not afraid of getting close, but you're also not desperate for connection. You can handle conflict and difficult conversations without becoming emotionally dysregulated. You can give and receive love without losing yourself in the process. Your secure attachment also means you don't take their avoidant behaviors personally. When they need space, you don't interpret it as rejection. When they're not as emotionally expressive as you might prefer, you don't see it as a lack of care. You understand that people have different ways of being in relationships, and you can appreciate their unique style without trying to change it. This secure energy also creates a calming, stabilizing presence in their life. Avoidants often feel like they're walking on eggshells in relationships, worried that they'll say or do the wrong thing and create emotional drama. But your secure attachment style means you're not looking for reasons to be upset or offended. You're not hypersensitive to their words or actions. You can give them the benefit of the doubt and communicate openly about any concerns without creating a crisis. The sixth unconscious desire that makes avoidants feel magnetically drawn to someone is encountering a person who embodies adventure and spontaneity while maintaining emotional stability. Avoidants are often attracted to people who can bring excitement and novelty to their lives without creating chaos or drama. You're someone who suggests new experiences, who's up for spontaneous adventures, who brings a sense of fun and playfulness to the relationship. This adventurous spirit appeals to the avoidant's unconscious need for stimulation and novelty. They often get bored easily in relationships that become too routine or predictable. But when you can introduce new experiences, suggest interesting activities, or simply bring a sense of adventure to everyday life, you keep them engaged and interested. You represent the kind. This combination of adventure and stability is incredibly attractive to avoidants because it allows them to experience the excitement and novelty they crave while feeling emotionally safe. They don't have to worry that your spontaneous nature will lead to emotional outbursts or relationship drama. They can relax and enjoy the adventure because they trust your emotional stability. The seventh unconscious desire that creates irresistible attraction in avoidance is encountering someone who demonstrates genuine curiosity and interest in their inner world without being invasive or pushy. This means you ask thoughtful questions about their thoughts, feelings, and experiences, but you don't pressure them to share more than they're comfortable with. You show genuine interest in understanding them as a person, not just as a romantic partner. This curiosity appeals to the avoidant's unconscious need to be truly seen and understood. Many avoidants have experienced relationships where partners were more interested in changing them than understanding them. But when you demonstrate genuine curiosity about their thoughts, their past experiences, their dreams and goals, their unique perspective on life, you're showing that you value them as an individual. This curiosity also extends to being interested in their autonomous activities and interests. You ask about their hobbies, their work, their friendships, their individual goals and dreams. You show that you see them as a complete person beyond just their role in the relationship. This is incredibly attractive because it confirms that you're not trying to make them into an extension of yourself or your relationship. Your genuine curiosity also means you listen without judgment when they do share. You don't try to fix their problems or give unsolicited advice. You don't use their vulnerabilities against them later. You simply listen with genuine interest and appreciation for their willingness to share. This creates a safe space for them to gradually open up more, which deepens the connection in a way that feels natural and unforced. The eighth unconscious desire that makes avoidants feel irresistibly drawn to someone is encountering a person who embodies healthy boundaries while remaining warm and loving. This means you're clear about what you will and won't accept in a relationship, but you communicate these boundaries with kindness and understanding rather than anger or demand. You don't compromise your values or needs, for the sake of keeping the peace, but you also don't use your boundaries as weapons or manipulation tactics. This healthy boundary setting is incredibly attractive to avoidance because it demonstrates that you have self-respect and won't allow yourself to be treated poorly. They unconsciously respect people who know their own worth and won't settle for less than they deserve. At the same time, your warm, loving communication style shows that you're not trying to control or punish them. You're simply being clear about your needs and expectations. Your healthy boundaries also mean you don't enable their avoidant behaviors or make excuses for them. If they're being emotionally unavailable or treating you poorly, you address it directly but kindly. You don't ignore red flags or pretend everything is fine when it's not. This is attractive because it shows you're paying attention and you care enough about the relationship to address problems when they arise. These boundaries also extend to maintaining your own life and interests even when you're in a relationship. You don't lose yourself in the connection or make them the center of your universe. You maintain your friendships, your hobbies, your personal goals and dreams. This is incredibly attractive to avoidance because it shows you're not going to become dependent on them for your happiness or sense of identity. The ninth unconscious desire that creates magnetic attraction in avoidance is encountering someone who demonstrates emotional intelligence and empathy without being overly emotional or reactive. This means you can understand and respond to their emotional needs and communication style without losing your own emotional center. You're sensitive to their feelings and reactions, but you don't take everything personally or become overwhelmed by their emotions. And this emotional intelligence allows you to read between the lines of their communication, understanding what they're really saying or feeling even when they're not expressing it directly. You can sense when they need space without them having to explicitly ask for it. You can recognize when they're feeling overwhelmed or stressed and respond with understanding rather than taking it as a personal rejection. Your empathy also means you can understand their perspective and validate their feelings without necessarily agreeing with all their actions. You can say things like, "I understand that you need time to process this," or "I can see why that would feel overwhelming for you," without making them feel judged or criticized. This validation is incredibly attractive because it shows you see them as a complete person with valid emotions and needs. But your emotional intelligence also means you don't lose yourself in trying to manage their emotions or fix their problems. You can be understanding and supportive without becoming codependent or enabling. You maintain your own emotional center while being responsive to theirs. The 10th and final unconscious desire that makes avoidance feel irresistibly drawn to someone is encountering a person who embodies authentic self-love and self-care without being selfish or self-centered. This means you genuinely like and appreciate yourself, you take care of your physical and emotional needs, and you treat yourself with kindness and respect. And this self-love isn't narcissistic or selfish, it's healthy and balanced. This authentic self-love is incredibly attractive to avoidance because it demonstrates that you don't need them to complete you or make you feel worthy. You already know your own value and worth, and you're not looking for external validation to feel good about yourself. This takes pressure off them to be responsible for your emotional well-being and happiness. Your self-care also means you're not willing to accept treatment that doesn't align with your values or needs. You don't stay in situations that are consistently draining or harmful to your well-being. You prioritize your own mental and emotional health, which is attractive because it shows you're not going to become a burden or drain on their energy. This self-love also extends to having confidence in your own thoughts, feelings, and perspectives. You don't constantly second-guess yourself or look to others for validation. You trust your own judgment and intuition, which is incredibly attractive because it shows you're emotionally mature and self-aware. Understanding these deep unconscious desires can help you recognize whether you naturally embody these qualities or whether you might want to develop them for your own personal growth and relationship success. But remember, these insights should only be applied with someone who has demonstrated they possess the basic character qualities necessary for healthy relationships. Never compromise your standards or accept poor treatment from someone who exhibits the character defects I outlined earlier, regardless of how attracted they might be to you. You deserve a partner who treats you with basic respect, empathy, and consideration, even during difficult times. Don't sacrifice your standards or compromise your worth for someone who has proven themselves incapable of meeting the minimum requirements for healthy relationships. Show no mercy to those who have shown no mercy to you. The person who truly deserves your love and attention will appreciate and reciprocate these qualities naturally, creating the kind of deep, meaningful connection you deserve.